Hello and welcome to Lab 2 on blood. This is a pretty short lab, as in there's not a lot of material on here. If you Those of you who had me for Anatomy 1 may have noticed that I take slides like this and say, you just need to know that this is blood. Well, now we're going into more detail. Now we're going to start looking at the different types of cells. And according to your lab sheet, I'm going to rewrite some of these to what you need to know them as. Red blood cells are also known as those erythrocytes. So we need to be able to know that these red blood cells here are specifically erythrocytes. Platelets are also known as thrombocytes. And I did not spell that right. Let me fix that. Thrombocytes. There we go. Thrombocytes are our platelets. And then we have our white blood cells. We have 5 different types of white blood cells. These different white blood cells do different jobs. So in this picture here, we have an eosinophil. This eosinophil is a specific type of white blood cell that gets activated during parasitic infections, allergic reactions, and they're also thought to potentially play a role in destroying cancer cells. So what kind of distinguishes an eosinophil from other types of white blood cells, we have this, what is kind of known as a bilobed nucleus. So this nucleus here, there's one here, there's a little connecting point before we get this second lobe. So it's just kind of one way to kind of decipher one of these cells from the next. Here, those red blood cells, again, if you remember, those red blood cells are those erythrocytes. Those platelets are those thrombocytes. Here we have neutrophils. Neutrophils, these are the first white blood cell to kind of respond to an infection. Bacterial, they'll also participate in fungal infections. They kind of work to engulf, so they kind of eat that specific pathogen and they break it down and kill it. These are the most abundant types of white blood cells that we have. So these neutrophils, there's 2 of them on this picture. They kind of have this chain like nucleus that kind of travels throughout. You can kind of see how this one kind of has this little chain like picture that kind of travels throughout this entire area. That is how our neutrophil versus this bilobed in this eosinophil. Here you can see kind of more of a chain for this specific nucleus. A monocyte. This monocyte, this is a type of white blood cell that cleans up dead cells, debris, different pathogens. They're also going to help respond to different types of infections, but they're kind of come around and clean everything up. These cells are known as monocytes in the bloodstream. These are the cells that tend to leave the bloodstream. And when they leave the bloodstream, they become macrophages. These macrophages are the cells that engulf everything, anything, debris. These are the main cells that come when you have a cut. They come in, engulf debris, bacteria, anything in the area. They break it down and get rid of it, trying to help prevent infections. These cells, if you kind of notice their nucleus, this one is kind of like a nice little kidney bean shape. It kind of takes up most of the cell, if you kind of notice. Being able to kind of tell the nucleuses apart, that's one of the main ways to kind of tell these apart, because here you can see that neutrophil, that kind of chain like nucleus versus that monocyte, which is takes up a lot of that cell. A lymphocyte. Lymphocytes, these are cells that become more specialized into doing specific roles. They'll become T cells, B cells. They also become cells that are known as natural killer cells. So they help in viral infections. They create different antibodies that kind of come in and try to kill off specific types of viruses, like influenza A. These lymphocytes are going to come in, they're going to create these antibodies that is going to target that cell to be killed. This cell, as you can see, this nucleus takes up most of the cell because there's a lot of information that this cell needs to specifically have. Here's the one last one that we haven't talked about, is that basophil. Basophil, this entire cell is pretty much that nucleus. You can see lots of little dots kind of throughout a basophil. Basophils release out histamine. Those of you that get allergic reactions to something, basophils are releasing out that histamine that causes that redness to occur. So these are the cells that cause allergic reactions to actually occur. Inflammation, if you've ever had an injury and an area gets really red, basophils are releasing out that histamine that causes that redness to occur. So they're going to kind of play a role in the different inflammatory responses that our bodies kind of play into. So here's just a nice blood smear that shows all of them. Here's the ones that are specific from your lab manual. So you can see the differences in some of these neutrophils, these eosinophils, basophils, lymphocytes, and then those monocytes. So here kind of breaks them down, gives them in larger pictures for you. Blood typing. Blood typing. Our blood type is based off of specific antigens that we have or do not have on our blood cells. So like type A blood is going to have A antigens. Type B blood is going to have a different type of antigen, that B. You can have AB, which would have both A and B antigens. Type O doesn't have anything on it. So if somebody has type A blood, they're going to have anti-B antibodies. So if somebody was with type A blood was given type B blood, these antibodies would go in and kill off that B blood cell. Same thing with somebody with type B blood that was given type A. If you notice, these parts here kind of fit together with these specific antigens found on this red blood cell. So those antibodies will come in and attach to those red blood cells that it should not have, like type B blood given type A, so that anti-A antibody would go in and kill that red blood cell. People who have AB blood, they don't have any antibodies, meaning they could receive type A blood, type B blood. They can also receive type O blood because there's no antigens on there. So type AB blood is kind of known as that universal receiver. They can receive any kind of blood. Type O blood is that universal donor because there's no antigens on there, which means this anti-A antibody or anti-B antibody cannot kill that blood cell because there's no antigens on that blood. So anybody who's going to want to work in a hospital, this is things that you kind of need to know. to kind of follow through with. So when we blood type different blood, how we tell what type of blood something is based off of we use different chemicals to come in and mix blood together. So if somebody were to be given an anti-A, if that blood clumps, that tells us it's A. If somebody was given anti-B, that B blood clumps up, that's what you get. AB blood, both that A and that B would clump up. O, nothing would clump up. So it's the way we go through and do blood testing. Computers do a lot of this stuff now, but in some labs, they still do it this way. So this is a way to kind of learn some of this stuff. And then this is just a really cool picture from your, it's an electron micrograph from your lab manual textbook that I thought was pretty cool. So I wanted to share it. Thank you for listening to Lab 2.